before Pope Francis would become the 266th Pope of the Roman Catholic Church back in 2012. Before Pope Francis would be known as the first Jesuit Pope, the first from the Americas, and a global champion for the marginalized. Before Pope Francis would land himself on the cover of Time magazine back in 2013 and become the first Jesuit Pope as well as the first Pope from the Americas. Before Pope Francis would pass away on Easter Monday 2025 at the age of 88, leaving behind a legacy of humility, reform, and compassion. Now, believe it or not, the McCruddens, being myself and my wife Kara, we're actually practicing Catholics and we attend church each and every Sunday, at least when we can. Now, this Easter holiday, things were a little off, and it's arguably one of the biggest events in the calendar year. But this year, 2025, it was especially difficult as the top dog, he was in ill form during the celebration of Christ's resurrection. Now, despite that, he kept busy. He was seen traveling in what the kids call the Pope Mobile, where he would go around the Vatican meeting with his faithful religious fans. Now, despite all this, he kept himself busy. He was seen traveling in what the kids called the Pope Mobile around the Vatican, and he actually met with Vice President J.D. Vance just the day before his passing. Now, some of these things you likely know, but did you know that before becoming Pope, Jorge lived a humble life in Argentina, and he worked ordinary jobs, including that of a janitor. He was a chemical technician, a high school teacher, and he even worked as a nightclub bouncer. Right. God bless his soul. He must have seen some sinful stuff in that place, but the guy stuck to his gig, or his faith. Welcome back. This is Before They Are Famous, but this one, it's obviously titled Before They Were Gone. Now, we're running polls both on YouTube and on Instagram where you guys decide which video we make, and I'll be making about 3 or 4 each and every week while I have time off from my other job, which is a college professor. So be sure to vote if you can. Leave your respects down below. Now let's get into this video. Jorge Mario Bergoglio was born on December 13, 1936 in Buenos Aires, Argentina. Now, he's the eldest of 5 children in a family of Italian immigrants. Now, his father, also Mario, he was an accountant, and his mother, Regina, she was the daughter of Italian immigrants, which instilled in him a deep sense of faith and service. Okay, his middle name's Mario, his dad's name's Mario. It's a me! They're both got the name. Now, growing up in the bustling streets of Buenos Aires, young Jorge, he experienced firsthand the struggles of working class life. Now, before his path to the priesthood, Jorge, he worked a series of odd jobs to help his family make ends meet. Now, as mentioned, he was a chemical technician, a janitor, and believe it or not, he even worked as a nightclub bouncer. Now, I know a man of faith, they're married to the Lord, but I got to imagine he was getting some kind of tail, which made me find this clip. Take a look.
Finding the people around too many for them.
Now that was just a little bit of a joke, a tasteful one, as much as I could come up with given the circumstances of this video. Now, Jorge, he had a modest aspiration. He dreamt as a little boy of one day becoming a butcher. Something, you won't find discussed online, but I did find it in this one unique clip. Now, the path to priesthood for a young Jorge, his spiritual journey, it began in earnest after a serious illness as a young man when he was 21 years of age. Now, during this time, he actually had a part of his lung removed. Now, this brush with morality, it deepened his faith, and it set him on a path towards a religious life. Now, as mentioned, he was working odd jobs, and one day, while on his way to an actual party, probably that nightclub, I'll let him finish the story.
Prima di andare alla festa sono passato alla parrocchia dove andavo e ho trovato un prete che non conoscevo e ho sentito la necessità di confessarmi.
On December 13, 1969, he was ordained as a Jesuit priest, joining an order known for its commitment to education, social justice, and missionary work. Now, during Argentina's brutal dictatorship in the 1970s, Jorge served as a provincial superior to the Jesuits. Now, he navigated a perilous landscape, sometimes criticized for not doing enough, but also praised for quietly sheltering those at risk. Now, rising through the ranks by 1992, Jorge Jorge was appointed auxiliary bishop of Buenos Aires, and he quickly rose to becoming archbishop in 1987, which is a year after I was born, so still a long time ago, 40 years. Now, he was known for his humility, often taking public transportation and living simply, without spending more than he needed. Now, even as a candidate in 2001, Pope John Paul II, he made him a cardinal, but Jorge, he remained focused on the poor and marginalized, regularly visiting the city's slums and advocating for social justice. Now, he became Pope Francis on March 13, 2013, after the resignation of Pope Benedict, and Jorge, he was elected the 266th Pope. Now, this is the first from the Americas, the first Jesuit, and the first to take the name Francis. Now, this was inspired by Saint Francis of Assisi, who's had his devotion to the poor. Now, his election, it was seen as a sign of change and hope for millions. People all over the world, they celebrated. Okay, the reception there, it seemed a little mum, but trust me, back in South America, well, when he returned home, the crowd went wild. Now, Pope Francis, he quickly became known for his humility and his accessibility. He chose to live in the modest Casa Santa Marta guest house rather than the papal apartments, which were real bougie. Now, my wife Kara, she's made an entire video about this on her other channel, Famous Entertainment. So I'll link to that above me, also in the description down below. You can find out how the man lived his life. Now, Francis also broke with tradition by wearing a simple iron cross instead of one made of gold. Truly a man of the people, and he preferred to eat meals with the homeless rather than those who were prosperous or part of government, bigwigs coming to town. The guy really liked to take care of everyone, or those at the very bottom. His famous phrase, "Who am I to judge?" Well, that comment, it signaled a more inclusive approach to the LGBTQ+ community, and he called for a poor church for the poor, meaning, we don't need to live better than anyone. Now, throughout his papacy, Francis, he championed the environment, authoring the landmark encyclical Laudato Si, which pushed for reforms within the Vatican's bureaucracy. Kind of like what Trump's doing right now over at the White House, but a lot more holy. He also advocated for refugees, he visited conflict zones, and he worked to bridge divisions with other faiths, becoming the first pope to visit Iraq to meet with top Muslim clerics. Now, Francis, he was not without his own controversy. His efforts to modernize the church and his outspoken criticism of capitalism and climate inaction, well, it drew both praise and criticism. Now, he faced challenges from conservative factions within the church, especially regarding his more welcoming stance toward divorced Catholics and LGBTQ+ individuals. Also, while he was the Pope, well, Hollywood made not one but two Pope movies. That's got to be a little bit one of those nail biters. What are they going to do? What are they going to say? How are they going to portray us? The guy sat through it all. Good for him. Now, despite his ongoing health challenges, including the removal of part of his lung years prior, also bouts of pneumonia, Francis, he remained active into his late 80s. Then on Easter Monday of April 21st, 2025, Pope Francis, he passed away at his residence in the Vatican at the age of 88. Now, this was after a prolonged illness. In fact, J.D. Vance, who was there the day prior, he said it was very clear that the man was very, very ill. Now, his death, it was marked by tributes from all over the world, honoring his lifelong dedication to compassion, justice, and the gospel. Now, Francis, he leaves behind a legacy as a reformer, a bridge builder, and a relentless advocate for the poor and the marginalized. Now, he taught the world to see the face of Christ in everyone, especially those on the margins, and he challenged the church to be the force of good in a very troubled world. And, that's the story of Pope Francis, and unfortunately, that is his before they were gone. Sorry guys, I'm just getting back to doing this. I used to do this absolutely every day for nearly a decade, but I'm no spring chicken myself anymore. So it's getting a little harder to see, it's getting a little harder to breathe, and I'm just trying to keep up. You guys voted for me to make this video, and his funeral will be held on April 26th, and the world will be tuning in to pay tribute to a man who really just gave everything of himself to better the world. And what more can you ask for from someone, right? I hope you enjoyed this video. We got a few more coming your way this week. I have a new poll up there. I think I said Seth Rogen, John Hamm. The names escape me. It's on the channel. Be sure to check it out, and I'll see you guys in another video. Okay, bye.